So, you probably clicked on this video because you think the title is the craziest thing you have ever read in your entire life. Like really? White Palace? You think this is better than the City of Tears and Green Path? The Royal Waterways? Well, yeah, I do. And in this wacky, weird, crazy video, I'm gonna argue why I think the White Palace is the best area in all of Hollow Knight. Matter of fact, I'd say best between both kingdoms, Hallownest and Farwood. So, get your fingers ready because we are going to unpack this whole debate. So the first thing we'll argue about is the story. Now, I'm not going to bore you with a full-fledged video essay about the story of the White Palace, even though that would probably be awesome and not boring, so I'll just summarize really quick. Basically, this place was where the Pale King, this lad who finally gets to appropriately be in a video, lived. It was the hub of operations for his rule over Hallownest, and was originally located here in the ancient basin on the palace grounds. Now, eventually, the Radiance gets all upset and whatnot, as you know, and Hallownest falls apart. So, the Pale King runs away, leaving everyone to die, and takes his palace with him. How does he take his palace with him? Like, what does that even mean? Well, theoretically, he was able to put his palace into the Dream Realm entirely, leaving essentially no trace of it on the palace grounds today. The dream stuff is a whole separate topic that maybe would be cool to go into detail on in another video, but we're focused on the palace, baby. Aside from dreams though, we can also find void things here too, like the wing molds and king's molds. These guys were made from void, being evidenced by the king's workshop and just how their body is void color. You know? So just right there, you can already see two of the major forces in Hallownest being directly linked to this place, which immediately makes me feel like this place is kind of the culmination of the entire kingdom in a way, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, this isn't the only place where this is true. Like, the Ancient Basin as an area also technically has both of these. The final fight against the Radiance has them both. Green Path, I guess, too. But, like, you know what I mean. It's so dramatically prominent in the White Palace that it feels so much more powerful. But now, this raises the question, is this story really better than every other area? And I will gladly concede the point that it's not. Why, you might be asking? Because I don't think the story is the only thing that makes an area great. I do think the Citadel, for example, has a better story, and I wouldn't be mad at someone saying the City of Tears does too. Honestly, I'd even hear arguments for Kingdom's Edge, which I also think is incredibly underrated, and probably Deep Nest too. I also think I should probably honorably mention Verdania and Biowater because those are both great story-wise, but again, I just think the importance of the elements in the White Palace gives it the edge over the other ones in this regard. But like I said, the story isn't everything, so let's talk about another category. Okay, so gameplay, like combat and platforming. Yes, good category for the White Palace. I wanted to bring combat up because I think this is probably the weakest part of the area as a whole. There is no boss fight, and the only enemies that even attack are the King's Molds, so if combat is your favorite part of the game, I understand why you might not feel so strongly about the White Palace. However, I kind of love the lack of combat needed for this place. While it is still difficult to get through the insane platforming, it feels kind of peaceful to make your way through this. It's one of the very few areas where you have to take your time to get through it. Like, you really can't rush your way to the top because, well, you'll die. But I mean, there isn't any combat to really go into depth about. The most we get is 2 King's Molds following the hardest platforming challenge in the game, so I guess on that note we should probably talk about that. I'm sure the platforming for this place needs no introduction. It is by far the best platforming section we get in either games, I think. Like I said earlier, you kind of have to take your time here, which I think really added to the overall experience. You are forced to take a while in the White Palace, which I guess could be a turnoff for some people, but for me, I think it added to my playthrough. When you think of other platforming areas like the Border Caves, Crystal Peak, I guess, Mount Fay, you definitely don't have to take your time as much. Mount Fay especially is a great example because, like, you have to rush through this place or else you will freeze to death, which in return, I feel like I didn't get to experience the beauty of the place as much as the White Palace. And I mean, in reality, you have no real reason to return to either of these places much, besides like Bright Vein in Act 3, and maybe to come back for the Path of Pain, but it's not like there are consistent objectives in these places throughout the game, as opposed to something like a Greymoor or Crossroads. You kind of just do your business and leave, like a public bathroom. Gross. Okay, sorry. But yeah, okay, the platforming is just generally also insanely fun to me. It's the biggest challenge in this regard between both games, I think, even without counting the Path of Pain. The Path of Pain itself, despite taking me literally 4 hours my first time, is one of the most replayable parts of Hollow Knight for me. Obviously, technically, it's not replayable, but I have a save where I got to the White Palace and keep dying to the King's Molds at the end so I can keep doing it, which is so much fun, like almost on the same level as Pantheon 5 or the Hall of Gods, at least in my opinion. This whole video is my opinion. Subscribe if you agree, yada yada yada. But yeah, need I say more? The platforming's amazing, so let's get to some other stuff. This next section will deal with atmosphere, which I think is an incredibly broad spectrum. Why I say this is because of areas like the Ancient Basin. The place has no music, very little life, but still somehow I think it has a 10 out of 10 atmosphere. It conveys such a feeling of loneliness down at the bottom of the kingdom, kind of mirroring the Pale King's desertion of his subjects, and just gives you such a strong feeling. A strange feeling, yes, but a strong one. And this is another thing that I think the White Palace absolutely nails. As you make your way through the Pale King's house, you see all these things that bring you so far back to the prime of Hallownest that it kind of feels like a completely different world. Granted, it is a different realm, the Dream Realm, but still, I don't know. I'm kind of blabbering about this, but like the feeling I had in the White Palace was so unreal, it almost feels like you're beating the game in a way. You're climbing this massive structure, you don't know what you're doing here, you're farming these people who think you're a king. There are flying bugs, plants, light, dark, dreams, saws. It's so good. I would literally pay $50,000 billion to sleep right here for one night, and I'm not even kidding. Along the same lines as the vibe is the soundtrack, which in my eyes is the other half of the atmosphere equation. Whereas the Ancient Basin has no music at all, the White Palace is backed by my favorite song from Christopher Larkin, period. Like, this is better than City of Tears, Choral Chambers, High Halls, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, this is my favorite Hollow Knight song. To me, it kind of just feels like a reflection of the entire kingdom rather than your average backing track. You can hear the agony of Hallownest in it, how the king's plan failed, leaving the kingdom to die, or maybe you can't and I'm just imagining things. I think the track Pale Court has a similar feel, where that one feels more like it's telling the story of Hallownest, whereas this one just sounds like the current state of the kingdom. I don't know though, please tell me someone or two of you know what I mean. I didn't even need to say all that, to be honest. I just think this is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard, like genuinely probably in my top 10 best songs ever, and for good reason. It's such a beautiful yet tragic piece that could probably only fit in one of the most important areas of the game, which it does. And when you combine this with everything I said earlier about all the elements that make up the vibe of the place, I mean, come on man, it's just unbelievable. Tell me you're not getting goosebumps right now. And then you get to the throne room where you meet the Pale King, steal his money, and sit on the throne. Like, bro, come on. This is the coolest thing, maybe ever. This was also my background on my laptop for like 3 years, so that's another win for the White Palace. I also think I should quickly mention that the theme that plays while we sit on the throne, being a variation of the Knight's theme, is so awesome. And I guess also in the same realm is all the secrets you find here. The workshop, the cradle room, the lore tablet, like all these little secrets being hid away in this enormous grand palace is such a cool thing, and so rewarding to find. I didn't know about any of these for so long, and then like 2 years after I played Hollow Knight for the first time, I found out there was more to discover in the game, and like that kind of thing just makes me go head over heels. There were a couple other places in Hallownest that took me forever to find too, and each and every time they were so crazy because the game just never stopped growing. This room in the Fog Canyon specifically took me like 3 years to find. This room, and it's not even important. So amplify that by like 10 and then you have the White Palace. But I think there is one more category I kind of want to talk about. So before we end the video, I think we need to address some counterpoints to what I've been saying in a deeper level than what we have been doing so far. First, story-wise. I mentioned that some other areas have better stories than the White Palace, most notably the Citadel and City of Tears, and I stand by that. I don't think the White Palace has the most compelling story, but I don't think it has to. What it may lack in story, it makes up for in platforming and atmosphere. In both those categories, I think it's the best area overall. Then we go back to combat, and it's nowhere close to the top. I think I'd put pretty much every other area over it for combat, but again, it makes up for that with the other things. I don't know why it sounds like I'm desperate to make you guys agree with me. I think I just love the White Palace too much. Last thing, and then I'll let you go for real. Just to visualize kind of what I've been saying, here I have my top 5 areas from both games, and you can see how they match up. Obviously, this is just my personal ranking, so I'm very open to comments telling me how this is wrong, but I figured this at least shows my thinking. You can tell the first 2 categories don't look too good for the White Palace, but then it just dominates everything else, and when you average that out, it gives it an edge over the rest. Just figured I could do this really quick to prove to you guys that I really do have it over these other places, but obviously with this you can choose different categories and whatnot, blah 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 blah. These are just the 5 most prominent for me. But I'll stop yapping to you for now, and I'll wrap this Jonathan up. Hey, wow, thanks for listening to me yap. I don't really know what compelled me to make this video. I just kind of wanted to talk about the White Palace, I guess, and this was pretty fun, so win-win. If you like this kind of video alongside the lore stuff, let me know. I'd love to offer more incredibly hot takes in the future and have bombs sent to my location. If you hated it, fair enough. Let me know your favorite areas down below, or whether you agree or disagree with my points here too. Also, let me know if you'd be down to see more Hollow Knight stuff too. Let me know everything while you're at it. Let me know the meaning of life. Okay, sorry, never. Last thing I guess really quick is that we will probably be getting back to the area series soon, so, yeah, look out for that. Maybe soon. Okay, sorry. Thanks for watching. Comment your favorite leafy green, and I'll see you all under there. Under where? Oh, dang, man, you got me. Dang it.